on any of these issues. Now, at this point, it's starting to look like a civil war is a real possibility.
It's been preceded, this coup attempt by the United States, by several years of economic sanctions and by several attempts militarily by small groups of National Guard or Army individuals inside of the Venezuelan government to try to assassinate President Maduro. Maduro was elected twice. There were other opposition parties that were allowed to run. Some chose not to. And there are contending forces in the country. It's a polarized situation.
The USA is singing a song of democracy when it comes to Venezuela, but it's starting to look like they're marching the country towards civil war. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
And as U.S. troops begin efforts to withdraw from Syria, over on Capitol Hill, the House unanimously passed a bill to impose new U.S. sanctions on anyone they deem supporters of Syria's energy, airspace, and business sectors. The act would require the president to impose new sanctions on either individuals or entities that provide financing to the government of Syria. Now, this legislation has yet to pass the Senate as Democrats refuse to take up voting during this partial government shutdown. So joining us to further discuss, former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. So, Mike, we know last month the president surprised everybody with this announcement of the troop withdrawal. He said ISIS was defeated and that it's time for Syria to work towards peace. But critics of this new move say we need more diplomacy, not sanctions, if peace is really the intent. So how do you see this playing out, given that the sanctions aim to hit Syria's energy, air, and business sectors?
Well, first of all, and this bill, by the way, has administration support. And even though the Senate hasn't taken it up yet, but it's really another backhanded way, if you will, of regime change. They don't want Assad in there on the one hand, and also and of course diplomacy is not going to be enhanced in any way with increasing sanctions. I mean, in terms of that, but the other concern that seems to be emerging from all of this is that even though these sanctions are aimed primarily at Syria and its business sectors, and as well as financial sectors, it's ultimately aimed at Russia, China, and Iran. And those are the countries that Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, said would have primacy in any kind of reconstruction in Syria in a post-war environment. And this, I think, is basically a backhanded way, if you will, of furthering Russian sanctions, and also sanctions against China ultimately, and certainly Iran. But
that's certainly sneaky.
It's sneaky, and also it can be aimed at EU countries. Deutsche Bank, for example, they do a lot of financing, particularly in the Middle East. It could be aimed
bandwagon, saying they needed to calling for democracy. Organization of American states, Brazil.
Unter dem im Dritten Reich gewesen ist.
The truth about his own father's past is also revealed in documents from that unique archive. There is, for example, one declassified FBI report that includes a copy of Erhard Mossack's special interrogation. Erhard
and diplomacy, it's actually hindering it.
And if these new sanctions do move forward and they serve to actually weaken